Well, welcome to the Local League Shared Leadership Meeting. And I'm Mary Kay Oline Berkey of the League of Women Voters of Michigan Membership Leadership Committee. Membership Leadership Development Committee. And now I forgot one word. Denise and Paula mentioned to me that at a recent local league president's call, there was a request for a discussion about shared leadership options. So I've invited a panel of league leaders from 3 local leagues to tell us about their experiences with shared leadership. We're going to hear first from the Kalamazoo Area League. They've had a successful co-president team, Barbara Dirks and Chris Kurthy, for the past 2 years, and so they will tell us about that. Secondly, we're going to hear from the Jackson Area League, and they've also had leadership from co-presidents Shirley Zeller and Pam Schultz, and they will tell us about their experiences. And thirdly, we are going to hear from the Marquette County League. They've adopted a shared leadership model that incorporates 3 different key people in carrying out the duties of traditionally carried out by the president. So we'll hear from them as well. I'm going to start with the Kalamazoo Area League. Barb and Chris, would you tell us about what worked well for you as co-presidents?
Well, first of all, I think we'd just like to thank you for having the opportunity to do some sharing. I know that we're going to talk about some things that were both personal reasons it was a success, but then some practical things, and then the challenges.
First of all, Barb and I were fortunate because we had known each other for 20 years before we became co-presidents. So that was a big help in our connection. Barb, go ahead.
We were friends for that long, but the important piece of that, because when I first started, I was co-president with Mary Kay, and that was also, I considered, a wonderful success because we took the time to get acquainted. And so whether you're friends forever or just new friends, I think that piece of getting acquainted and finding out personal things about each other, and that leads to knowing what people are good at and what their preferences are. And when you do that, then the other times when you're making practical decisions, you've got some good grounding for it. I don't know, Chris, if you want to jump in with some of the practical things that we...
Yes. I was a former math teacher and Barb was a former language arts teacher. So it was like we were 2 parts of a whole brain, you know, the left side and the right side. So I think recognizing what each of your strengths are and letting that person run with those strengths is a real good thing to do. And just to know that you need help, and you know, there'll be more than just the 2 of you or more, however your management team is. But recognizing the strengths and letting each person shine in that area is a big help. Barb, go ahead.
Yeah, it's way easier to take turns when you know, okay, this person does that so well, they're good with tech, they can respond to these things. I can do the writing, you can do, you know, when you share that kind of knowledge. And there were some practical things that we developed simply because it was preservation. When you're doing league things, you have so many things in a frying pan at once that one person can't possibly do it all anyway. So it's really nice. And one of our practical things was we each kept a list of what we were doing, so that when we were talking to each other, we knew, okay, this is what I've done and this is what I've done, and you could be very specific about it. So that was a really practical thing. So when I had too many things on my list, I would say, can we have a, you know, Zoom? Can we have a coffee together? Can we meet? And so that was a big advantage for that piece.
We also kept running lists. You know, I had a list, things to talk to Barb about, and it was a running list. And then we didn't fumble when we did meet. Now, what was I going to talk to you about? This is another really practical thing we divided. We had 10 board meetings a year and 10 voters, the newsletter. And so we divided it up 5 and 5. Barb ran 5 meetings and did the president's column and 5 voters. And I took the other 5. So that was an easy thing to divide up, but it really takes a load off. And we did it so that you did the president's column and the board meeting in the same month. And so then you kind of had the next month off. So that worked out well for us.
And we turns out in getting acquainted in a professional way, we discovered also we're both morning people. So I would be busy doing something and then I could tell she was on it, and that could really work for us. But it also made it possible to do some instant communication, which makes it more efficient. You know, you have so many things, you don't want to spin your wheels a lot. So we could just say, okay, I'll do this, you do that, right on the spot. So that's another good piece of that.
We would sign each other's names to things. You know, there had to be a level of trust. You know, we would just say from Barb and Chris, and Barb may have no idea that I was even writing this, but you know, we trusted each other. So that, I think, is a really important thing.
And I think that piece of also of knowing right from the get-go who we were as people. So if Chris says, I'm going to take care of this, or if I say I'm going to take care of this, that was a piece of the trust. We didn't try to micromanage. We didn't second guess each other. If we had questions, we could quick text a question. You know, is this how you want to do this? We could verify things, but we didn't second guess. I guess there was more efficiency to it that way too.
And our most often said line is, this is a volunteer position. So
That's the way
realizing that you cannot do it all, that
right.
Yes, you want the moon, but we're only going to be able to settle for Earth. And
That's a good way of putting it. Paying
yes.
compliments, paying compliments, laughing. We tried to squeeze in a lot of that. The challenges were exactly that, because we both would be so, okay, well, let's do this, let's do this. And then we would have to go, okay, but I've been to 3 Zooms today and I've already been to this. And as you all well know, Zooms it's efficient, but at the same time, it can be consuming of your time.
Did anybody have any questions of us? Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, how were you, what is your terms of office? Are you alternating your, like, one is a 2-year term so that you have an overlap? Is that
So
how that works?
See, I was on with a year with Mary Kay, then I went on and committed to 2 years, and Chris came on so that she'll stay on a 3rd year, and I've left.
Right, I'm on now, and I'm with a new partner, Aideen Clements. So I'm starting, you know, to organize the new relationship. But Aideen's amazing, so that part's easy. But yes, and this will be my last year, and we're hoping to recruit somebody else to be a partner with Aideen. So there will be overlap.
Perfect.
Given that you've got a new co-president this year, Chris, are there things that you might try to do differently than you did with Barb?
I don't have anything that I have in mind that I want to do differently. No, I'm hoping it goes as well. So I can't think of anything right now, Mary Kay.
Mary Kay, I could simply say, because going from one partner and another partner and another partner, the structure is what stays the same. And then because you have that structure, you can grow the trust that then becomes the social piece that makes it easier and easier. So if we were to look at how would we start it over and do it again, we would probably hit the ground running a little differently. But that's only because we didn't know what we didn't know, and we didn't know we had to plan this far in advance for this or this far in advance for that. So good intentions to always be organized like that, but it was very hard for me anyway to stay with my calendar and go, oh, we got to do this, we got to do this, because the paperwork could overwhelm you. If anybody has a secret on paperwork, they should share it.
Paula, go ahead.
Hi, I'm sorry, damn dog. So it's very interesting to hear the way you operate, because frankly, it's pretty similar to the way Denise and I operate at, running the state as co-presidents. So I feel like we're doing things kind of right. But I have a question. Do you copy each other, or did you copy each other on every email you sent? We found that we need to do that so we're both aware, but sometimes I worry that we're just burdening the other person. Did you guys do that?
I wouldn't say it was on every email, but a majority of the emails we copied each other just so we didn't, contact the same person twice, or just so that, Barb knew I was doing this crazy thing, and she wasn't blindsided. So we did
Yeah.
a majority of the time. Would you agree, Barb?
Yeah, and I was going to say, when there were events we were planning, we if I could remember to hit copy all, or reply all, but yes, we tried to do it that way. And there would be times when we didn't copy, and then we would have to take a text later and go, oh, by the way, put your name on something. But yes, because it was good to know. Now I have to go through and try to figure out how to get rid of all the millions of emails that we don't have to go back to.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Barb and Chris? Mary Jo?
Yeah, so I'm curious, so you laid out that you share running the meetings and the column, but in terms of, say, your board contacting you with an issue, have you divided, what one person's going to kind of do and the other one is going to concentrate on? Like in our league, we also have co-presidents, and one, at this point, it's kind of evolved. One is more administrative and one's more voter service. So I just wondered if you have any thing like that.
I do the board of canvassers and the candidate forums. Barb does the events committee, and she's got you're invited, our social, and like we wrote a grant. Barb did the writing of the grant, so she's more of the writing, where I'm lucky to spell it correctly. So it was Barb, go ahead.
No, I think you're right. I think where we have a membership committee, so we knew that person was in charge of membership. So we were very fortunate. We always felt like our board was so successful and had such good people on it that we knew those people were taking care of that. And then Chris did the things she likes to do, and I did the things I like to do, and the other things we did together. So yes, we organized and divvied it up.
Okay, and your board knows that, obviously. Thank you.
Ellen?
Yeah, did you use, everybody, do you use like Google Drive to keep track of all your documents, all your reports, all your meeting notes and stuff, organized hierarchical? I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but so that both of you log in, or, is that like a shared drive? You both do you have to put those records somewhere?
We have a shared drive.
Okay.
And our secretary organizes, our the board drive, and then she's got folders for us. So we have help in that area through Debbie.
Does the secretary set the agenda, keep the notes, send out the notices for Zoom and so forth?
We set the agenda and then share it with our secretary. And then Deb sends out the invitation for the board meetings and creates the framework for the notes. This is really nothing to do with shared leadership, but we have notes for our board meetings that we fill in the report before the board meetings. Maybe you all do that already and we're late to the game, but that has helped speed up our board meetings a lot, having the reports in there before the board meetings. But our secretary creates that framework, and then each person fills in the board report. Did that answer your question, Ellen?
It does, but let's say it's your month to run the meeting, so that it's your month to do the agenda. It's your month to make sure the invites get out, and the other person can just twiddle their thumbs and just take a break.
No,
No,
no
the
twiddling.
pers-
There's
yeah,
no
no
twiddling.
twiddling. So the person, if it's my month to do the to run the board meeting, I start the agenda, but then I always run it past Barb, and I know I've, missed a couple of things, and Barb will tell me, no, what about this? So there's editing by the other person. You're never alone. You're never completely alone.
Got it.
And there's things that happen because of the divvying up of different responsibilities that all of a sudden you have to have a conversation at a board meeting. So you both need to feed into that for that reason. And one of the challenges we didn't mention, but is definitely a challenge, is scheduling Zoom. For us, just one person has to do the scheduling of the Zoom, because trying to log in and log off was frequently an issue to who then could run the meeting, who was going to be the meeting, and frequently it became an issue.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Barb and Chris. I appreciate
Oh,
your being
Is
with us.
is there another hand? Susan?
Yes, thank you. It's Susan. Yes, my question is, when your nominating committee met, how did they go about finding these, people who were interested in being co-presidents? Had you done a survey of your membership to find out some of their strengths and weaknesses, or what they were involved in? Because to me, it would be very critical to pick a co-president that could, like you say, morning people, or they're more detail oriented than not detailed. So I mean,
we have a strong membership person who does that,
okay,
and she does reach out and see if we have feedback or information about people, which is very helpful, because sometimes I knew that I was going to, after 3 years, step down, and Chris was going to go on. So we could talk about, oh, this would be a person I could work with. And then our membership person could approach them and see if they're interested.
okay.
And we talk as we're at events throughout the year. We have conversations with members. Like, I have an idea who might be interested in taking my job next. So we just keep our ears open and have conversations with members.
And then you're
Sure.
sharing that with your nominating committee chair, right?
Correct, Mary Kay. That's right.
That's what I meant to say.
Okay, keep our nominating committee in the loop on who they might approach for the next.
One of our issues in our league has been, we've had all our board meetings via Zoom. And we've had like 2, sometimes 3 general membership meetings a year. The only time really the largest gathering of our group is our annual meeting. And, by then, that's when we need to be electing and appointing. So far, our president has been personally going out and gathering with the new members that have joined. She has a coffee with them, or a lunch sometimes with them, and meets to find out some of their strengths. So
I think that's a really good approach. We are in the same boat. We have all of our majority of our board meetings by Zoom. We have one in person in June, and the annual meeting. I think it's been easier recruiting presidents, co-presidents, when it is co-president, when they know that person knows they're not going to be alone, and that they'll have somebody with some experience. So I think that's been a help to our nominating committee.
I also think because we frequently participate in like the voter registrations, we see other people in the league that show up places. And so you see a face and put it together with some of the things they're active in.
Um,
Nancy?
Yeah, would you say at least one of the co-presidents should have served kind of a good deal of time on the board?
Sure, yes. Chris had served a long time on the board, but I had served a short time, but I jumped into the co-presidency. And because I had a wonderful co-president who was patient with me, I
Yeah.
think that was good. Thank you, Mary Kay.
Because
do
I'm thinking it's a complicated job. And if you're new to it, there's just so much you could miss. So I'm wondering if probably both people wouldn't have had to serve on the board, but probably one for sure.
We
You're
both,
right, Nancy. Yeah.
we
sometimes
both had, and the more roles you fill, probably the better it is.
sometimes just observing your board and noticing who's active or seems really interested in leadership kinds of roles, that can be a person that you might want to approach about being a co-president, and then see how it might work out and share that person's potential interest with the nominating committee and kind of take it from there.
Okay.
Do the recruiting. At this point, I'm going to move on to the Jackson area,
Thank you.
where we have also have co-presidents, Shirley and Pam. Is Pam on?
I'm sorry, I just got a text from her and said something unexpected came up and she's not gonna be able to be on, so I'm what you get.
Okay, that's fine. Well, I'm going to ask Shirley then for her input on what has worked well for her working as a co-president with Pam.
Well, I worked with as a co-president with Mary Lee Clark, who is on the call tonight first.
Okay.
And then Mary Lee was off as has been co-presidents for 4 years, maybe. I should have looked it up. I don't remember. But anyway, she and I really worked well together because, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, getting ready for this call, but I had more experience running a meeting and putting things together for the meeting, and she's really a background worker. And so I would put together the agenda for the meeting, and as the former people said, I'd send the agenda to her and say, did I miss anything? What can you add? You know, what else do we need or whatever? So we would get together probably a week or 10 days before every board meeting. Our board meetings are all in person except for January, February, and March. We have Zoom because some of our members are in Florida, our board members. So we would get together and go over our notes and make sure, you know, we were covering the business we needed to. And Pam would ask each of the committee if there was any problems they were having or issues that we needed to talk about. We were ready to do that. And that's, as the former people said, that saves a lot of time when you have that information ahead of time, so that you don't come to the meeting and say, oh, I should have brought this up. So most of the time we knew exactly what was going to be on our agenda, which really helped. And then we would do that for our general membership meetings too. We have 4 a year. Those were all in person. And of course, our annual meeting was the largest, but we have a fairly small league. So the work is distributed amongst a few, as it always goes. So the committee reports are really important for us. We also sent a lot of emails back and forth. If Pam had something she thought ought to go out to the members, she'd check with me, or she would send it and then send me an email and said, I sent that out. All the time, so I didn't duplicate things to our members. The committee reports were really helped us a lot. We did a lot of the same things as far as communicating. And I think that was the biggest thing, was communicating with each other, so that when we got to a meeting, we pretty much knew what was going on, and I have a couple of members on the call tonight, and they might disagree with me, but I think we we kept it going pretty smoothly. We have both stepped out of the co-presidency this year, so we have two new co-presidents coming in. They've both been on the board, so it's not like they're brand new to taking over as co-presidents, and that's Deborah Nagy. She's on the call tonight, and Linda Ferguson, which some of you know, the hat lady. So they have had their first meeting, I believe. I did not go to it because I'm not on the board now. And I actually had a lot of things going on, so I've had a pretty busy summer. But a couple of things that are challenges for us is getting volunteers. We have a lot of events coming up in Jackson, and we have a lot of things that we would like to be represented at, where we can register voters or tell them how to register, or, you know, give them information. And it's hard to get enough volunteers to take 1 and 2 hour shifts. So we pick and choose the ones where we think are going to give us the most bang for the buck, so to speak. For instance, we did one for the Civil War muster in town, and though there were a lot of people there, the nonprofit area didn't get a lot of a few, and had some good conversations, but we might not do that again because we didn't think we got the best bang for the buck on that one. But we have a lot of them coming up this summer, and people have been really working hard at it. And Pam's kind of taken over now the voter services stuff and doing a lot of work on that. And she's really good at the background and research work, and I was not as good at that. So I actually ran all the meetings as far as conducting the meeting and putting the agenda together with her help, and other members from the board. So that's about all I have to add to what the other two said. They covered a lot of the same kinds of things we do, so I won't duplicate that. But I think it's important to have co-presidents. There's a lot of work, and you don't feel quite as overwhelmed if you have two people kind of sharing it.
Sure.
Barb, you have a question?
Oops.
You're muted. You're muted.
When you mentioned you have 4 membership meetings, did I
Yes.
hear that right?
Yes. Yes.
Were they well attended?
Some better. One of the ones that we consider a membership meeting is our holiday event, and we quite often do something for a charity in town, like we did mittens one year, and we've been doing some things for a group that's doing stuff for girls in town. And so we've done that a couple of years, and we get a little bit better attendance at that. We have 50 members, 52 or 3, and we have probably 20 at a meeting.
That's
So-
really
Nice.
good.
That's
know,
very good.
Fantastic, but we try to have some speaker that has to do with one of our positions or one of our, or with our mission. We've had someone talk about the veterans program in town, and then we've had the gal from the place that does things for girls. I can't think of their name right now, but anyway, so we participate that way too, and try to have something that's interesting for our members to come to a membership meeting. And we try to have some snacks, so it's a little bit social.
Very nice.
So anyway, any other questions? I think that's about all.
Okay,
We
well,
did start our Observer Corps during the year, and that, well, we started it a couple of years ago. And that's, we haven't had anything that's moved up to an advocacy problem, so we're kind of slowing that down right now, and maybe after the election, we'll pick that back up and get going on it. But Right now, we just haven't had, we've covered a lot of different, I think 12 different governmental meetings, but we haven't really had anything that was an issue that we needed to follow up on. So we're fortunate that way. So we've been busy with that. And our voter services, of course, we have quite a big crew on that. And Mary Lee is on the call, and she's just been gathering up postcards like crazy. I think she has almost all of ours addressed now, maybe. Mary Lee, can you add anything? You were co-president with me one couple of years.
I think that, yeah, you came in with me to become co-president. Previous to that, I'd just been president. And it was really, to me, a real time of change when the increasing amount of information and requests from national as well as state just started increasing exponentially. And quite often you're trying to focus on one thing to do or the things to do with your league, and you get a request from national, and you feel like you have to drop everything, and it's really hard. And I think that for you and Pam, that's probably helped that there's been some, I presume there's been some division of that. To me, that's a difficult issue to break down or to do justice.
Good point, Mary Lee.
Because it just keeps increasing, it seems like. I may be wrong. But
Any questions or comments otherwise?
Do you both leagues and all three leagues, do you have a defined voter service chair? So when you say someone,
Yes.
okay, that's a godsend. We don't have that one person yet. And so when I'm curious about that, and it just seems to fall on the same people all the time.
Yeah.
And
That's probably our biggest committee, and because it covers candidate forums, it covers registration, it covers the events that we're going to cover and all those sorts of things. And one of the grants that we got where we got materials to hand out was really helpful. And the voter services committee handles all that. So yes, that's really helpful.
okay. In Kalamazoo, how many members do you have?
We have over 200.
I'm sorry.
We have over 200.
Wow.
240, I think, was the last count.
Yes.
242.
Wow.
And we have 53.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I asked about how many people attended.
But we still have the same problems as you do, getting people to
Yes.
volunteer.
Yeah.
So
Many people like to support the league with their dues, and they just don't have time or don't want to get involved or don't have the ability to get involved. We have some people that just couldn't get out to do stuff like that. So I think we'll do for the number of members that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Lena?
Yes. It sounds like both groups so far, you're in the middle of it. You haven't just started it. You've done it for a few years.
yes.
What would you recommend we try to do to start this in our league? How do we approach members? And because in our league, we've had 3 very strong leaders who really did a lot of work. So how do we now introduce it as a shared job that don't be so afraid?
Well, I think you have to emphasize the work of it, because as we said, there's more and more requests from national. We have more and more opportunities from the state, and now we're going to be having the dues change. We have a lot of things going on, so I think it's really important to have 2 people in leadership capacity to share that well.
I would think also that adding that topic to your agenda for several months would be a great idea, just in setting the stage for how people can share the workload. I know that both Chris and I appreciated meeting with Mary Kay when she was first past president, because we had questions. We didn't really know, okay, should we do this or that? How much to take on, and we could have that counsel. So putting it on an agenda so that you can have the advice of everybody on a board, and then also going back to the past presidents that were strong leaders for their opinions.
Okay, thank
We've
you.
had a lot of confidence in our coach, who is Denise, and she's fabulous.
He
I'll give
is.
her credit right now
Yes.
because we had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, and she just has been so helpful. We thought maybe when she went in as state president, she'd say, no, I can't do it anymore, but she's still our coach. Although we don't meet every month now, we're a little bit older league, so we don't need quite as much mentoring, but we still use Denise as our mentor in a lot of things we do.
Camilla? I think you're muted.
I wanted to add something super, super practical, because I was Lansing area converted to co-presidents, and I had 2 terms. And if you want to do this and you decide to do it, make sure that you get your bylaws to fit, so that you don't have that one person at the annual meeting that says, wait, you can't do this. We have one of those, so we keep everything in line. And it's pretty easy to do. And Lansing area
Really
got
important.
theirs written so that we could go. It reads so you can have one president or co-presidents. It's a really practical thing, but if you're going to do it, keep it in mind to avoid confusion.
Good idea.
Good point. Yeah,
Okay, thank you, Shirley.
you're welcome.
Your input, and we're going to move now to the Marquette County League. They, as I said, they've adopted a 3-person leadership team, and it includes, first of all, a communications coordinator and spokesperson, and that is Laura Sabo. And then there's a convener, and that's Joe Foley. And I know we have Joe with us. And also there's a liaison to the League of Women Voters of Michigan and the League of Women Voters US. David Allen, who is with us, held that position for a couple of years, I think at least. And I think Ruth Zeal has taken that over now, but I'm glad David is here to help respond to questions about how this new leadership structure works. Maybe we can hear from Joe first. Can you tell us a bit about your role and how it's going?
So I'm the convener in the Marquette County. We went a little different route than the co-presidents. Basically, at the time, it was because I would not become a co-president. It was too much. I had been a vice president, a co-vice president, and we had a very strong founding president, Darlene Allen, who some of you probably know. And she's incredible, and she organized things amazingly, but there was so much work that basically we couldn't get even 2 people to handle that. So that's when we turned to the Michigan League, I think, and sort of frantically tried to figure out what else could we do, because we had, everyone else was excited. We had a very strong working board. We just didn't have someone who wanted to take the leadership themselves. So happily, there is within the league bylaws a way to spread that responsibility out even further. So that's what we did. We decided, the board agreed, the board discussed it and agreed, and then we actually turned it to the membership as well. And we would do a 6-month trial of a 3-way leadership, and kind of went from there. And the convener is the person who does puts the agenda together. However, once I've put the agenda together from our calendar and from past minutes, what we need to be doing, I always send it to the whole board to say, what else? You know, what else do you want to put on this? So that's always shared.
Yeah.
And then I facilitate the board meetings and the membership meetings. And I do the membership agenda as well, again, with the input of the board. So that's the convener. David will talk about liaison. Our third position is the spokesperson. And this year, or this couple of years, our spokesperson is also our communication coordinator. She agreed to be the spokesperson. And we have she's actually put together an incredible committee in communications. And she is not always the person who speaks, but we gave her the ability to field all, requests for a spokesperson and then figure out which is the best person of the board to talk. So we've spread things out. David should tell you about the league liaison, because I stayed far away from that.
Yeah, so the liaison position is basically, so you can think of the convener as the face at meetings, at membership and board meetings, the sort of the organizational face. The spokesperson is the organizational face to the public. The liaison is the face to the state and the National League. So, and these are the key roles of a presidency that can be split in these three ways. And there's this template that LWVUS came up with that we modeled this on. A couple other things I just wanted to mention, though, is we've actually flattened it even further, although technically those three positions are how we split the roles of the presidency. And we did a lot of work on our bylaws to make sure there were no things left out, because there's a lot of things that a president can do that don't neatly fit in those three, and we handled that. But we've actually, I would say now we've basically got 6 positions that are the leadership role. So we have those 3 that we just talked about, plus what you're used to hearing about in any structure, a treasurer and a secretary, and then our vice president of voter services. So those 6 people basically now do what Darlene used to do. And, I live with Darlene, so I can tell you that it is the biggest, hardest job she's ever had in her entire career. She was working, 40 to 60 hours a week for 6 or 7 years. And she was very good at it and it was great. But it just got to the point where she couldn't keep doing it. And as Joe said, we couldn't find 2 people willing to say, well, we'll do that. The other thing I just wanted to mention is I think you can think of sort of one president or co-presidents or 3 or 6 this way. The fewer people you have, the more efficient it is. It's very efficient to have a very good, capable leader who's doing all these things at once. And you do lose efficiency as you spread it out. But it is much more sustainable and also gives a greater feeling of equity and fairness to spread these things out. So it does take some additional work, I think, to spread it out further and further. But in my personal opinion, so far at least, it is working in Marquette. The 6 people work well together, and you have to have a good nominating committee to find people who are actually able and willing, and you have to find people who can work together. But if you're able to do that, I think that we found if you want to do as much work as we're doing in Marquette, you probably have to have more than one person. And if you're willing to do that work to make it feasible, I think it's worth doing. So we're very happy with it. And the last thing I'll say is, even when you spread it out, there still has to be somebody who sort of actually has their hand on the rudder of the ship. And that right now is Joe Foley for us. So, I mean, Joe doesn't have to do everything a president did, but she's sort of the person we look to make sure that we're still like going in one direction. And so you can't just hope for the best and assign 6 people jobs. You do have to have somebody sort of paying attention. So those are my few comments.
Yep.
Thanks. I want to say too that that seems to work out well for the convener to be that person. But we tried to make it very clear when we went to this form of governance that the 3 and then the 6 were not the board. We do not make decisions for our league. We keep things running, you know, we keep it alive, keep our finances true and all of that, but the board makes the decisions. And that's what I've done too. A problem comes up, or a thought comes up about how are we going to sustain this, or what should we do here? I don't make that decision. The 3 don't make that decision. We take it to the board and thrash it out there. Sometimes I think the board would like someone to just make that decision. But that's what I've resisted the most, because
How large is your board?
The board is 10 people now. And we're hoping to increase that by a few. We have a really working board. Everyone on the board is a liaison to at least one of the committees, and is working in their area as well as on the board.
Okay. Yep.
What else was I going to say? Decisions.
And we're, we should say, we're sort of in between the sizes that have been discussed. We're probably, usually we're between about 100 and 120. So we're not as big as the really big leagues in the state, but we're also not on the small end. We're sort of medium sized.
Right. And we get an average around 35 members at our meetings, and we have most months we will have a membership meeting. I'd say at least 10 a year, wouldn't you, David?
Yeah, 10 a year, 10 or 11.
10, 11. And we do board meetings in person. Our membership meetings in the warmer months are pretty much in person. We try to do some Zooms in the winter just to save some people some driving, because we're pretty big county, you know, and some people live pretty far out. But we have found that to sustain the work we're doing, and we recently looked at last year's whole list of what we managed to do, and it just staggers us to look at it. And to continue that energy, we find that the face-to-face meetings are really pretty important. It raises the energy. You get to know people a little better than on Zoom, I think. There's more conversation before and after that's easy. You can, you know, little cubby holes and talk to each other. And that's become important to us, to be face-to-face as much as we can. We do use the Zoom when we have to. The membership seems to be pretty content. We did a 6-month evaluation and brought that to the membership and asked them if they thought things were going okay. Did they have problems, questions? And nobody did. We did the same thing with the board. And then we did it again at a year when we needed to make the changes in our bylaws so that the next election we could actually elect those positions rather than the previous positions, the president, vice secretary, and stuff. So it was a little wild there, and I think maybe the membership got a little tired of my Zen diagram of how we interacted, but they seem to get it, or at least they seem to be happy that we're doing it.
And Joe, I think you'll agree, tell me if you don't, but I think that not only are we doing as much as we did with a president, I think our trajectory, you know, we keep doing more. Our trajectory was not changed. It changed the style and how we did it, but I think that we've been able to continue to grow and to tackle new things and to change directions. And so I think it is working for us.
I very much agree. I very much agree. And what we can do is we spin off things. We can spin off, like our voter service. We have a voter services coordinator, and she has groups under her, right? So she doesn't have to do everything in voter services. She oversees it all. although she's usually there. So it involves more people. It gets people going who maybe can't commit to being on the board, all year long, but will commit to an event or commit to a particular topic or put together an event. We've had our committees will put together a whole event for our membership. And, they propose it to the board and we say, go for it. And they do. And we've had some amazing events. We had our largest candidate forum ever. We had, I don't know, must have had close to 150 people in the room for it. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was packed. So, yeah, it seems to help the energy. I know that well, that's the reason I didn't take on being a co-president. I knew I couldn't do it. I just wouldn't have that kind of energy, or that would be all I could do. And nobody was willing to do that. And this way, we spread it out. There's also some presidential duties, and bless her heart, Darlene put a whole list together of presidential duties. So some of them fell in these 3 positions, but some fell outside of it, like who was going to answer the email? So the communications took that over, and who was going to pick up the mail in the post office box? Well, I decided I could do that. So we divide, we know what we need to do, and we divide that as well. And we've been finding recently, as we are trying to help out our new secretary, that there are some secretarial duties that our previous secretary took on that don't have to be done by a board member, right? So we're finding an archivist. David is the webmaster, and we're using that to archive papers, right? I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and making them more available to our membership as well. So we've been very lucky to some degree in the people who have joined with their talents and their interest and their energy as well.
And I guess you've just made me think of another thing too. I'm not to keep just talking. I know you guys might have questions, but I also play in a lot of music organizations, and there's a thing that happens both in leagues and in music organizations, and that is you can get a vicious cycle that's either positive or negative. And, a positive one is where things are going well and you've got good leaders and it creates energy and that attracts better people from the community. You have better musicians playing or better league members who show up. And then that makes the organization more vibrant, and then more people know. But the other thing can happen too, if you find yourself in a position where it's like, well, we can't find a president, we're just going to struggle forward. That's how you get the negative spiral. You have to find a technique that will work. It doesn't have to be a president or a co-president or 3 or 6, but something can work, and you have to engage and think about it to prevent these negative spirals, which is where I think so many leagues just died out around the state, including in Marquette. And I've seen this happen with musical organizations. So don't get discouraged if you can't find what you've been doing isn't going to work for the next phase. Maybe you can convince one of the LWVMI presidents to move to your league and take over as president, or maybe you can try one of these other structures that will work for you. And I think there's a lot of different ways to make these things work, and it's worth it. It's worth it to keep the energy going.
And to not feel alone in it. I mean, you co-presidents seem to really work well together and support each other, and that's wonderful. I couldn't do this if I didn't feel like the board was not supporting me, but supporting our league, and in it for fairly long haul. And we have fun too, most of the time.
You mentioned you got this idea from National. You're saying that this whole setup came from, somebody said it came from National, this type of format? Is that?
That's my recollection, is that LWVUS, it could have been LWVMI, but I think it was LWVUS, had this structure written down somewhere that we'd never even heard of. I mean, we were in the throes of trying to figure out how we're going to get a president. to replace Darlene. And then as Joe said, well, that isn't going to work. How are we going to find co-presidents? And we worked we worked for a year trying to find co-presidents, and it's like, it's just not going to happen. And so we were starting to feel a little desperate, and wherever we found it was either US or MI, there's something written down, this idea of these three positions, the convener, liaison, and spokesperson. And as soon as we saw that, we're like, that's it. Let's try that. And so we didn't exactly completely follow the model, but that's where we started. And it was very, very helpful. And again, Darlene will know which one it was, and maybe Denise or Paula knows, but I think my recollection, it was US. So
Miller will know. So
Actually, I, if it's still there, and it's called Streamlining the League.
Okay.
And it's on the LWVUS website. And it's very similar, except I like what Marquette has done more than what they have.
Well, I think it's, you know, they just gave a basic framework.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you filled it out, but it's, you know, and Detroit is adopting a version
Oh, yeah.
of that. Yeah, so Marquette's been very helpful with that too.
Camilla, would you repeat that again? What is it called?
Streamlining the League.
Thank you.
And yeah, try the LWVUS website. I haven't looked at it in a long time. Well, maybe a year, but I'm assuming it's still there.
I'm sure we could come up with a copy of the document
yes.
somewhere in the archives, yeah, if it's not on their website. But I think probably talked to LWVMI first and got directed
Yeah.
by, you know, our coach or somebody.
I'd also like to say that I think Marquette still has your bylaws on your website. And if somebody wants to go and take a look at what how their bylaws have been changed to adapt to this, that's a very good resource.
We kind of went the route of being as flexible as possible. So we didn't totally replace the presidential or the co-presidential models. We added, so it can be any of those as the board decides.
So Paula, if you want to move to Marquette, we'll make you president.
Yeah. We've got work.
Shirley, you have a question.
I want to go back to the candidate forums.
Mhm.
Do you have any trouble getting two parties to?
To come. We've done pretty well. The majority of our forums over the last 3 or 4 years have been local, nonpartisan races. But we have now completed 2 partisan primary forums, and that was for the 109th state representative. And each time we had, well, the first time we only had 1 Republican, 1 of 2. And this time we had 2 of 3. So we're getting there. And I think people really, really like that. I think that brought in not only a lot of questions, but a lot of people. We live streamed it and we recorded it. And we've had, wow, I think we're 800 to 900 total views and streamers. And one advantage of being in a relatively small town is that sometimes not a lot's going on, and we've gotten to know our TV station, local TV stations pretty well. And we had all 3 of them there interviewing the candidates before the forum, and a couple of them put the whole forum, the whole 2 hours, on their websites and news apps. So we're developing a relationship with them as well, and that
Thank you.
impresses the viewers.
We've been able to get our local candidates that are nonpartisans, but the state reps and the US, we just cannot get 2 parties to come together and talk.
No, that's too bad. It really is.
It is difficult, and we have unsubstantiated feedback that the Republican Party asked their members not to participate in this one, but they still did. And again, that goes to what Joe's talking about. It is a small community, and I think there's still a sense here in the Upper Peninsula that if you don't show up to a forum, you must be trying to hide something. And so that seems stronger than the party directives. So we have had pretty good luck, not perfect, but I think it's building. I suspect that the next time we do this, we'll probably have everybody show up because enough people are watching that they'll start to see the advantage, I think.
It's free publicity for them. You know, there's TV, there's radio, there's, you know, the newspaper does stories and pictures. And
Well, it is free publicity for them, but we have not been successful doing that. So I enjoy your
I'm
comments.
sorry.
Thank you.
One thing too that has helped us, we have they volunteered this. We don't obviously ask people's political party when they join the league, but we do have some Republican members, and they have been very helpful in reaching out to some of these candidates and assuring them of fairness and equal time and all of that. So that's been a real big deal too.
Well, I think that it's probably time to close out, but this has been a really interesting meeting. I'm really
Yes.
pleased. I want to thank the representatives from Kalamazoo Area League and Jackson Area League and also the Marquette County League. It's been really valuable for all of us to hear from each of you as to how this is working for shared leadership of your local league. So thank you for participating, and we'll just say good evening.
Will you be posting the recording?
I will. I'll send the recording to all the local league presidents. Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Local
Thank
league-
you.
Mary Kay. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Kay.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.